If you're relatively new to using a router and you want to know how to produce perfect inlays just like this, then stay tuned because this video is just for you. In a recent video, I showed you how to use guide bushings. I'm going to put it up there right now. And if you haven't seen that already, I do recommend you have a look at that because that will show you exactly what guide bushings are and how to use them. But if you do know what guide bushings are, or you've already seen that video, then in this video, I'm going to show you how to use guide bushings to create inlays. So here I have a guide bushing inlay kit from Trend. And for your information, this video is not sponsored, but you can find a link to this product in the description box down below. And what you get in this kit is the guide bushing plate, another bush here which slots onto this bush. We've got a 3.2mm down cut spiral bit and also a couple of bolts to attach the plate. So before you go ahead and purchase an inlay kit, you do need to make sure that it's compatible with the router that you are planning to use it in. So you might have to do a little bit of research to start with, and that's exactly what I did, and found out that the Trend guide bushing plate here, 60mm diameter, exactly the same as the guide bushing that comes with my trimmer router. So I can literally just swap these over and this new Trend one will fit exactly as the DeWalt one does. So let's get the router set up then, and we need to put this guide bushing plate on and ensure it's central to the cutter and the spindle. And what we would normally use to do this is a centering cone like this, but I'm not going to be able to use this with this guide bushing, so I'm going to start by putting this guide bushing in, and then what we'll do once we've centered it, we'll then swap this for this. And you may be thinking, well, if I take this off and put this off, it won't end up with the same or in the same position. Well, it will, because I'm using these countersunk bolts. And if we have a look on the router base itself, you don't have countersunk holes. And if I just loosen these slightly, which I have, you can see there's a little bit of movement. So you could actually attach that into any position. So with this slightly loose, I'm going to just plunge the router down, and I'm going to put the plate on. Won't do that one up all the way until I've got this one in. There we go, then we'll just tighten that up. Like so. So what we now need to do is put the centering cone into the collet, and then we'll just do that up like so, and then very carefully we'll just release the base, and then that is now sitting completely central. We'll tighten these up here. Then we can take the pin out, like so, and then just release that plunge. So we now know that this is exactly central. So what I can now do is take this bush off and put this one on. And as you do those up, that guide bushing will just fall into the exact position, like that. So we've now got the guide bushing that we want to use with this really small hole here in exactly the right position, which is central to the spindle. Now we can put our router bit in. So just pop that into the collet. I've made various templates on my laser machine, and for the purpose of this video I'm going to be using this one. You can make templates out of 5mm ply just like this. You can use acrylic or MDF, but I wouldn't go any thinner than 5mm. And what you need to do is check the depth of your bushing and ensure your template material is thicker. But at the same time, don't make your template too thick, or your cutter may not be long enough to pass all the way through. Between 6mm and 12mm is my preference for when I'm making templates. I'm going to inlay these shapes into this piece of softwood, and I'm going to use this same 5mm ply as my insert. Now, depending on the size of your guide bushing and cutter, your insert that you make from your template is always going to be smaller than the template itself. So you need to allow for that. The diameter of the bushing here is 7.93 and my cutter is 3.2mm. So whilst using this inlay kit, my finished piece is going to be about 9.5mm smaller than my template. We're going to start by machining the pocket in the piece of softwood. So to do that, we need to add this extra bush to this bush here, and we just pop that over the top like so. I'm going to clamp the template onto our board, and I've made the template quite big so that I can quite easily get the router in there. Even this way it's not going to hit the clamp, so if you make it too small you might have an issue with holding it. The next thing I'll do is set the depth, and to do that what I need to do is to plunge the cutter down so it just touches the surface of the board. So there I know it's at 0. So what I'm going to do with the depth gauge here is drop that down to 0 like so, and then I'm going to move that up to 5mm. So that now allows me to drop this much deeper, which is 5mm, into our softwood. Now when we machine the pocket like we're doing here, everything from this piece of timber is coming out. So what I will do here is start by machining around the outside of the template, and then I'll just make multiple forward and back passes until I've cleared everything else out. Now you can see there that there's a few small pieces still left in there, so I can either go back in with the router and take those out, or I can just chisel them. So we can remove the clamps and move the template off, and you'll see there that we've got a really lovely clean cut circle. The next thing I want to do is create the insert, and for that I'm going to need a piece of sacrificial board. Here's our board that we're going to create our insert with. So I'll just pop that there. And then here's our template. So I'll just pop that on the top there as well. This time we need to keep everything on the inside after we've done that first cut. And in order to do this, we need to do two things. Firstly, only run the router around the edge of the template without letting it wander into the middle, because if it does, it then ruins our insert. Secondly, the piece we want to keep is likely to break away and move as we're about to finish the cut. So we need to somehow hold this piece down to avoid it doing that. And what we're going to do in this case is use some double-sided tape. I've marked on the board here where my template and my stock board is. So what I can do is move both those out the way. I can put this one back in place, and if I draw a circle there, that's roughly where my circle is going to be. So what I can do now is just pop a bit of double-sided tape on there, take the backing off, and we can pop that down and then put that down on top of there, clamp that down into position, and we should be ready to go. So this piece that comes out right here is stuck down with a bit of double-sided tape, so hopefully that will come out with no breakout on it. Now it's time to machine the inlay, and for that we need to take this extra bush off. And we need to set the cutter to go a little bit deeper than the piece that we want. So we'll just plunge that down so it just about hits the MDF there. So really important, keep that bushing tight against the template, and I'm going to run this round in a clockwise movement. It's like I've got a low battery. That's what you don't want to happen. All right, let's try that again. That was so close, but so far. And as you can see, our insert hasn't moved at all. That double-sided tape has worked really well. So, template off. And then we just need to pop that off. Get that tape off the back. There we go. There's our piece. Well, it feels pretty tight. So let's just grab the hammer and we'll just tap that gently. There, look at that. So you may have noticed that I did cut this in one pass, and with this 5mm ply I just about got away with it. It's quite a small cutter in here. It's only 3.2mm diameter, so I've probably just about got away with it. Any thicker and you want to start doing it in more than one pass. Okay, now we've done this, let's have a go doing the H. Now, doing something like this is a little bit trickier because I need to be really careful going round these external corners because I could quite easily veer off somewhere. So I've got to keep that nice and tight, particularly round this bit here. Just one thing to bear in mind with this particular insert, because you've got a 3.2mm cutter, it does mean that there's going to be a 1.6mm radius on these corners here, where we cut this out, it's actually completely square. So because it's such a small cutter, you might just get away with knocking that in and not noticing at all. But if you did have a bigger cutter, you would have to square these out. So it's quite tight. Let's go in. That took a bit of hammering, but just look how tight that is. I mean, yes, I had to bang it quite a bit there, but that looks really good. And that is pretty much flush with the surface. So grab yourself an inlay kit, get practicing with your router, and before you know it, you're going to start producing some really nice work, and you can take your woodworking to another level. Fantastic. Don't forget to check out some of my other router videos coming at the end of this video. Any questions or comments, you know what to do. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.